If this showed up for you right now, it's not an accident. It's the quantum field responding to something you've been asking for, consciously or not. Most people spend their entire lives trying to bend reality through force, willpower, and endless strategies, never understanding why nothing truly shifts. They visualize, they affirm, they work themselves to exhaustion, all while their bodies broadcast fear, doubt, and control into the very fabric of existence that's trying to respond. But there's a threshold, a point of no return, where everything inverts. When you really surrender to quantum physics, reality begins to bend in front of you. Not someday, not as metaphor, but now, measurably, with evidence you can track in your daily life. Synchronicities multiply, time behaves strangely, doors appear where walls stood moments before. The wildest part? This doesn't happen because you finally earned it or said the magic words. It happens because you stopped jamming the signal with contradiction and allowed the omniscient intelligence to finally work through you instead of against you. You know what's wild. Most people think they're manifesting with pure intention, but their bodies are screaming the opposite message into the quantum field. It's like trying to tune into your favorite radio station while someone's shaking the antenna. The signal exists, but interference creates nothing but static. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations written on sticky notes. It's about recognizing that doubt disguised as belief is still doubt. When someone says, "I believe this will work," while their jaw clenches and their stomach knots up, they're broadcasting two contradictory electromagnetic signals simultaneously, and the field responds to the louder one, which is usually fear. Here's the thing about quantum trust that nobody talks about. Your nervous system is a tower of transmission, constantly emitting vibrational signatures that either amplify or cancel out your conscious intentions. Think of it like this. Imagine you're holding a glass of water and someone asks if it's clean. You say, "Absolutely." But when you look closely, there's dirt swirling at the bottom, making everything cloudy. The water's there, the container's fine, but the interference makes it unusable. That's exactly what happens with manifestation when there's internal noise. The universe isn't ignoring your request. It's receiving a garbled message where your words say one thing and your cellular memory screams another, creating what quantum physics calls decoherence in your personal field. The fascinating part is that most people don't even realize they're doing this because interference has become their baseline normal. She remembers a period about 3 years ago when she'd set intentions every morning with total conviction, yet found herself compulsively checking her phone 40 times a day, refreshing emails like a slot machine, heart racing at every notification. That's not trust. That's surveillance dressed up as faith. Real interference shows up in the mundane moments, the way your shoulders tighten when plans change slightly, how you react with disproportionate stress to a 5-minute delay, or those contradictory prayers where you ask for abundance while simultaneously planning for disaster. These aren't character flaws. They're diagnostic signals showing exactly where your electromagnetic field is fighting itself. Want to know if you're broadcasting interference right now? Here's a 60-second test that'll reveal everything. Stop reading for a moment and scan your body. Notice where your shoulders are sitting. Feel the rhythm of your breath. Pay attention to any tension in your stomach or tightness in your jaw. Wherever you find contraction, restriction, or holding, that's precisely where you're blocking quantum flow and creating static in the signal. Your body doesn't lie. It's a real-time feedback system showing you the gap between what you're saying and what you're actually transmitting into the morphic field. This awareness alone starts shifting the interference pattern because consciousness itself is the first tool of reconfiguration. The beautiful paradox is that once you can diagnose the interference, you're already halfway to dissolving it. Most people spend years trying to override their doubt with louder affirmations, which is like turning up the volume on a broken speaker. You just get more distortion. The quantum approach is different. You acknowledge the noise. You witness where fear lives in your tissues, and you gently bring coherence back to the system through what we'll call cellular trust rather than mental convincing. This isn't about perfection or never having doubts. It's about recognizing when you've slipped into control mode and actively choosing surrender instead, allowing the omniscient intelligence to handle the how while you maintain clarity on the why. Here's what makes this practical rather than philosophical. Interference creates exhaustion because you're essentially running two opposing programs simultaneously, which drains your bioelectric battery faster than anything else. When you start noticing the patterns, the compulsive checking, the contradictory requests to the universe, the reactivity to minor inconveniences, you can catch yourself mid-interference and course correct in real time. It's like having a quantum GPS that alerts you when you've veered off the path of flow and into the ditch of resistance. But what most people don't realize is that the solution isn't in their mind at all. It lives in a place most have never thought to access, and what comes next will show you exactly where that place is and how to activate it in under 2 minutes. Here's where everything shifts from theory to transformation. Quantum trust isn't something you think your way into. It's something you drop into, physically, cellularly, like flipping a switch that's been covered in dust for years. Most spiritual teachers talk about trust as if it's a mental decision, a belief you adopt after reading enough books or repeating enough mantras. But real trust, the kind that bends reality, lives in your nervous system, in the softness of your belly, in the release of your jaw, in the rhythm of your breath when you finally stop trying to control the how and surrender completely to the omniscient intelligence that's been waiting for permission to work through you. This is what we call cellular trust, and it's the difference between someone who talks about manifestation and someone who actually lives inside the quantum flow. Think about how a GPS works for a second. You don't get in your car, type in your destination, and then spend the entire drive second-guessing the route, grabbing the wheel away from the system, or panicking every time it recalculates because of unexpected traffic. You trust the intelligence of the technology. You allow it to adjust, reroute, and find alternatives you couldn't have seen from your limited perspective. Now imagine that GPS is infinitely smarter. It's connected to every possible timeline, every synchronicity, every person who might cross your path at exactly the right moment. That's the omniscient intelligence of the quantum field, and your only job is to input the destination, your clear intention with electromagnetic coherence, and then relax into the passenger seat. Most people white-knuckle the steering wheel, fighting every recalculation as if it's a personal failure rather than proof the system is working. The virada de chave, the key that turns, is recognizing that trust must descend from your head into your body, or it's not real trust at all. You can say, "I trust the universe 1,000 times," but if your shoulders are up by your ears, your breathing is shallow and rapid, and your stomach feels like it's tied in knots, you're lying to yourself and the field knows it. Here's a practice that takes 90 seconds and will shift your entire energetic transmission. Right now, relax your jaw. Actually, let it go slack like you're half asleep. Then soften your belly. Stop holding it in. Let it be completely vulnerable and unguarded. Now breathe in slowly for 4 counts, hold for a beat, then exhale for 6 counts. Do this for 5 complete cycles while bringing to mind your why. Not the thing you want, but why it matters, what it will allow you to become or express. This simple act creates coherence between your intention and your nervous system. And coherence is the language the quantum field responds to most powerfully. What's remarkable is that you'll start noticing markers of progress that have nothing to do with the end result showing up yet. The first sign is always less urgency, that frantic, "when will it happen?" energy dissolves and gets replaced by a calm knowing. Decisions become absurdly simple. Things that used to require pros and cons lists suddenly feel obvious because you're tapped into a deeper intelligence. You'll catch yourself saying things like, "I don't know why, but I just know I need to call this person," or "something tells me to wait on this." And those hunches start proving themselves accurate with eerie consistency. This is you learning to read the cosmic timing, the janella de amplification, where small actions yield tenfold returns because you're moving with the current instead of against it. But here's what nobody warns you about. The moment you activate real cellular trust, your old control patterns will throw a tantrum. Your mind will generate worst-case scenarios, try to convince you that surrender equals irresponsibility, tell you that smart people plan for every contingency. That voice isn't wisdom, it's interference trying to maintain its familiar grip. The morphic field of collective consciousness is still heavily weighted toward control. So when you step into true collaboration with quantum intelligence, you're swimming against a cultural current that worships hustle, backup plans, and never fully letting go. You'll need to choose trust again and again, sometimes hour by hour, reminding your cells that you're safe to release, safe to be carried, safe to stop performing the exhausting theater of having it all figured out. The shift from control to collaboration isn't passive. It's the most active thing you'll ever do because it requires moment-to-moment awareness and choice. She watches people confuse surrender with checking out, thinking quantum trust means they can ignore their bank account, avoid difficult conversations, or wait for magical solutions while taking zero-aligned action. That's not collaboration, that's spiritual bypassing with a quantum label slapped on it. Real confianza quantica looks like moving when you feel the pull, resting when the energy says rest, speaking the truth even when it's uncomfortable, and taking practical steps while remaining unattached to exactly how the path unfolds. But the thing that amplifies this trust faster than anything else, evidence. And in the next section, you're about to discover how to spot the quantum field's responses that are already showing up all around you, invisible only because you haven't trained your eyes to see them yet. Here's the wild part that most people miss entirely. The quantum field has already been responding to you, leaving breadcrumbs and signposts everywhere, but you've been trained to dismiss them as coincidence or rationalize them away. Synchronicities aren't magical accidents. They're the field's way of confirming you're in alignment, showing you that the omniscient intelligence is actively coordinating people, timing, and circumstances around your coherent intention. Start paying attention to repeated numbers, 111, 444, sequences that show up on clocks, receipts, license plates at precisely the moment you're thinking about your manifestation. Notice names that keep appearing, the friend of a friend who mentions exactly what you need, the book that falls off the shelf at the bookstore. These aren't random. They're the universe's electromagnetic feedback system telling you, yes, we're connected, keep going. Make it a practice to register 3 synchronicities every single day. Write them down because what you acknowledge amplifies. Then there's something even more fascinating. Time itself starts behaving strangely when you're in quantum flow. You've experienced this before. Hours that vanish when you're completely absorbed in creative work. Or that bizarre phenomenon where you're running late, but somehow the traffic parts, every light turns green, and you arrive exactly on time, despite mathematical impossibility. That's not luck, that's tiempo subjetivo. The subjective experience of time bending when your vibration aligns with cosmic timing. Pay attention to moments when lines seem to open just for you, when parking spots appear right where you need them, when delays that frustrated you turn out to have saved you from something worse. The universe isn't punishing you with obstacles. It's recalculating routes like that GPS omnisciente we talked about, and what looks like a detour is actually the fastest path to your destination with the least energetic cost. Your body becomes a phenomenologically reliable instrument once you stop overriding its signals with mental interference. Notice how your sleep patterns shift when you're in alignment. You might sleep less, but wake completely refreshed, or suddenly need more rest as your system undergoes cellular reconfiguration. Physical tensions that you've carried for months dissolve overnight when you finally stop fighting the path and surrender to the flow. That chronic shoulder pain that no massage could fix. It releases the day you quit forcing a situation and trust the timing. Your stomach settles, your breathing deepens naturally, your nervous system relaxation becomes palpable. These aren't placebo effects. They're evidence that when you stop creating electromagnetic interference through resistance, your biology responds by dropping into its natural state of coherence and self-regulation. Then there are the downloads, those moments of intelligentsia known local when solutions arrive fully formed, as if dropped into your consciousness from somewhere beyond your individual mind. She's learned to keep a notebook next to her bed because the clearest insights come in that liminal space between sleep and waking, when the analytical mind is offline and the field can transmit directly. You're in the shower, not thinking about anything particular, and suddenly you have a complete strategy for something you've been struggling with for weeks. You're driving, and a voice that's not quite yours, but feels wiser, speaks a sentence that shifts your entire perspective. These aren't products of logical thinking. They're evidence of collaboration with the creative intelligence that exists in the quantum field, waiting for you to get quiet enough to receive. Keep something to write with everywhere, because these transmissions are time-sensitive and often fade if you don't capture them immediately. Here's something that'll make you pay attention. Animals, children, and even electronics respond to your energetic state in ways that reveal your level of coherence. When you're broadcasting confianza, cellular, and quantum trust, dogs that usually bark become calm around you. Babies that were fussy settle in your presence, and your computer that's been glitching suddenly works perfectly. This isn't anthropomorphizing or wishful thinking. It's the morphic field responding to your electromagnetic signature. Your energy literally anticipates needs before they're spoken. People call you moments before you are about to reach out to them. Opportunities show up the day before you would have needed them desperately. This is the quantum field organizing reality around your coherent vibration, proving that you're not separate from the intelligence that runs everything. You're a collaborative partner in its unfolding. The key is to start treating these occurrences not as cool when they happen, but as scientific data points proving you're in the frequency of manifestation. Most people experience a synchronicity, feel a little thrill, then immediately return to doubt and control. That's like getting confirmation from the universe and then hanging up the phone. Instead, each piece of evidence should deepen your cellular trust, creating momentum that builds on itself, what we might call momentum quantico, where each sign makes the next one more likely because you're sustaining the coherent signal longer. Track these phenomenological markers for even just 1 week with genuine attention, and you'll be stunned at how much communication has been happening that you've been unconsciously filtering out. But before you think this is all abstract and ethereal, wait until you hear what happened when someone went all in on complete surrender for just a handful of days. The story coming next might be the most practical proof you'll ever encounter. Let's get real for a moment, because theory only takes you so far until you need to see what this actually looks like when someone stops intellectualizing and starts living it. About 2 years ago, she hit a wall, and not the kind you power through with another motivational video or morning routine upgrade. This was complete energetic bankruptcy, the kind that comes from months of forcing outcomes, trying to manifest through sheer willpower, controlling every variable, and treating the universe like a vending machine that just needed the right combination of buttons pressed. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was cellular, like every mitochondria in her body was waving a white flag. Something had to give, and what gave was the illusion that she could figure out the how better than the omniscient intelligence that orchestrates galaxies. So she made a decision that felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Complete entrega, total surrender of the mechanism while maintaining absolute clarity on the why. No more strategizing 17 different paths forward. No more backup plans for the backup plans. No more late-night spiral sessions trying to anticipate every possible obstacle. She would hold the vision of what mattered, the core intention, the reason behind the desire, with unwavering electromagnetic coherence, and then she would release every single attachment to how it should unfold, when it should arrive, or who should be involved. For someone who'd built an identity around being the person with the plan, this felt like jumping off a cliff. But the thing about quantum leaps is they require actual leaping, and she was too tired to do anything else. What happened in the following week can only be described as entering an alternate timeline, where the rules of cause and effect stopped making linear sense. On day 3, a person she hadn't spoken to in over a year called out of nowhere with a solution to a problem she'd been wrestling with. Not a partial answer, but the exact framework she needed, delivered in a 20-minute conversation that felt orchestrated by something far beyond chance. Day 5 brought an offer for something she'd wanted for months, but at a price so unexpectedly low that she triple-checked to make sure it wasn't a mistake. That same night, an email arrived at 2:47 a.m. from someone in a completely different time zone, containing information that answered a question she'd asked the universe internally just hours before but had told no one about. The synchronicities weren't subtle anymore. They were loud, obvious, impossible to rationalize away. But here's what struck her most: the physical sensation that accompanied this week of surreality. Her nervous system, which had been running on high alert for months, jaw clenched, shoulders permanently tensed, stomach in knots, suddenly dropped into a relaxation so profound it almost felt unfamiliar. She'd wake up without the usual anxiety checklist running through her mind, move through the day with a strange sense of being gently carried rather than having to push everything uphill. Decisions became effortless because the right choice would just feel obvious, lit up somehow, while wrong paths felt neutral or slightly off. Her sleep improved dramatically, her digestion normalized, even her skin cleared up. All the physical markers that her system had finally stopped fighting reality and started collaborating with it. This is what happens when electromagnetic interference drops to near zero and your torre de transmission starts broadcasting a clean, coherent signal. The interpretation she landed on changed everything about how she approached manifestation from that point forward. When she finally stopped demanding the universe follow her script, invisible routes reorganized themselves instantly. People, money, opportunities, information, all of it was always available in the quantum field of infinite possibilities. But her white-knuckled grip on, "it must happen this specific way," was blocking the pathways. The moment she created space through surrender, the field could move freely, bringing together elements she never would have thought to combine, introducing variables her limited perspective couldn't have imagined. It wasn't that the universe suddenly decided to help her. It's that she finally stopped jamming the signal with contradiction and control, allowing the supporty invisible that's always present to become visible and actionable. The most profound learning that crystallized from this experience, complete confianza quantica sustained for just a few days, accomplishes more than months of partial belief mixed with hedging and doubt. You can spend a year saying affirmations while secretly planning for failure, or you can spend 72 hours in total surrender while maintaining your clear why, and the latter will move mountains. This isn't about duration, it's about depth and purity of signal. 99% trust still carries that 1% of interference that creates static in the field, and the universe responds to the mixed message by delivering mixed results. But when you go all in, body, mind, breath, cells, even briefly, you discover that reality is far more malleable than you were taught, and the intelligence you're collaborating with has been waiting for you to get out of your own way. Now, there are some critical distinctions that'll determine whether you're actually practicing quantum trust or just spiritually bypassing responsibility, and getting these clear is what separates real manifestors from people who just talk a good game. Let's cut through the confusion that trips up most people attempting quantum manifestation. There's a massive difference between active trust and spiritual bypassing, dressed up with physics terminology. Confianza attiva means you're taking aligned action, having uncomfortable conversations when the energy says speak, handling your practical responsibilities, showing up for the work that's yours to do, all while remaining unattached to controlling outcomes beyond your influence. Spiritual bypassing looks like ignoring your bank account because the universe will provide, avoiding necessary difficult dialogues because you're staying in high vibration, or using surrender as an excuse for passivity and inaction. The quantum field responds to coherent participation, not magical thinking disguised as trust. You're a co-creator, which means you bring your peace, clarity, action, energy, and allow the omniscient intelligence to handle the orchestration you can't see. Here's another distinction that'll save you years of frustration. You're not trying to manipulate or purchase the universe's cooperation through the right combination of techniques. This isn't a transaction where you deposit enough gratitude journals and visualization sessions and then withdraw your manifestation like an ATM. That's treating quantum mechanics like a cosmic vending machine, and it fundamentally misunderstands the relationship. Real collaboration means you're working with an intelligence that wants your expansion and evolution even more than you do, because your growth contributes to the evolution of consciousness itself. You align your electromagnetic field through coherence. You sustain your clear intention. You notice and follow the synchronicities, and you trust the timing, but you don't buy results. The field isn't transactional, it's relational, and the quality of that relationship determines what can flow through you. Now, here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. 99% trust is still control wearing a spiritual costume. You cannot have 1 foot in surrender and 1 foot in backup plans, just in case the universe doesn't come through. Or that 1% you're holding back, that little voice saying, "But what if it doesn't work?" That's the interference pattern that creates static in your signal and keeps you stuck in mixed manifestation results. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while someone keeps turning the dial slightly. You get fragments and distortion instead of clear reception. Total entrega doesn't mean recklessness. It means you handle your responsibilities while releasing attachment to the exact mechanism of delivery. You maintain your why with unwavering coherence, and you allow the how to surprise you, even when it looks nothing like what you expected. Remember that GPS analogy? Let's go deeper with it, because this distinction matters tremendously. When your GPS recalculates because of unexpected traffic, you don't interpret that as punishment, failure, or evidence that the system is broken. You recognize it as the intelligence finding a better route given new information. Same with cosmic timing. When delays happen, doors close, or plans shift unexpectedly, that's not the universe ignoring you or testing your worthiness. It's the omniscient intelligence recalculating to deliver your intention through the path of least energetic resistance and highest alignment. What looks like a detour from your limited perspective might be saving you from a collision you couldn't see, introducing you to someone crucial you wouldn't have met on the original route, or allowing time for elements to align that weren't ready yet. Trust the recalculation instead of white-knuckling your attachment to one specific path. This brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in quantum manifestation, janelas de amplificación, windows where the field is particularly responsive, and a small action yields exponentially larger returns. You've experienced these before. moments when everything clicks, doors fly open, opportunities cascade, and you feel carried by momentum that seems to come from beyond you. These windows aren't random. They correspond to periods of high coherence in your personal field that creates resonance with larger morphic patterns. Learn to read them through synchronicities, through the feeling of effortless flow, through that sense that this is my moment. When you're in a window of amplification, bold moves that would normally take massive effort become surprisingly easy. When you're not, pushing harder just creates friction. The skill is distinguishing between aligned persistence and forcing against the current, and that discernment comes from reading the wind through the evidence we discussed earlier. The final distinction that changes everything. There's a profound difference between being an observador cetico, who's constantly testing whether this quantum stuff really works, and being a true collaborador who's actively partnering with cosmic intelligence while staying grounded in practical reality. The skeptical observer maintains distance, analyzes from outside, withholds full participation as a protection mechanism. The collaborator brings their whole self, vulnerability, commitment, trust, while simultaneously handling logistics, taking responsibility, and staying engaged with material reality. You can be discerning without being skeptical. You can be trusting without being naive. And when you finally embody that balance, something shifts not just in your individual field, but in the collective space around you, which is exactly what we're about to explore. Because your coherence doesn't just change your life, it creates ripples that transform everyone in your orbit. Here's something that'll shift your entire understanding of why your personal quantum work matters beyond your individual desires. Coherence is contagious. When you stabilize your electromagnetic field in trust, surrender, and alignment, you don't just change your reality, you become a tuning fork that influences the morphic field around you, pulling others into harmonic resonance without saying a word. She's watched this happen countless times, walk into a tense meeting while holding steady coherence, and within minutes, the entire energy shifts. Decisions flow easier, conflicts dissolve. It's not manipulation or control, it's the natural physics of fields interacting. When one system stabilizes at a higher frequency, nearby systems entrain to match it. The same way pendulum clocks hung on the same wall eventually synchronize their swings. Your sustained confianza cellular creates a gravitational pull toward flow that others feel and respond to, often unconsciously. This is how evolution of consciousness actually happens, not through everyone suddenly having individual epiphanies simultaneously, but through waves of pioneers who do the internal work, stabilize in a new frequency, and make it easier for everyone who comes after. You've probably heard that it only takes a small percentage of a population shifting to create a tipping point in collective consciousness. That's not metaphor. That's morphic field mechanics. Every person who moves from interference to coherence, from control to collaboration, from doubt to cellular trust, creates a pathway in the field that subsequent people can follow more easily. You're not just manifesting for yourself, you're literally lowering the activation energy required for others to access these states. The work you do alone ripples outward in ways you'll never fully see, but that fundamentally alter what's possible for the collective. Now let's get practical, because this isn't just philosophical, it has immediate applications in every group context you're part of. Start incorporating micro-compromisos colectivos, simple rituals that align group fields before collaborative work. It can be as straightforward as 1 minute of shared presence at the beginning of a meeting. Everyone closes their eyes, takes 3 deep breaths together, and sets an intention for the highest good of what's being created. Sounds simple, almost too simple, but watch what happens to the quality of decisions, the reduction in reactive conflict, and the time saved by not spiraling into unproductive tangents. When a group field achieves even momentary coherencia de grupo, The collective intelligence that emerges is exponentially greater than the sum of individual minds. Problems that seemed impossibly complex suddenly have obvious solutions. Creativity flows, timing synchronizes. The practical benefits are immediate and measurable. Relationships become less reactive because when you're not broadcasting electromagnetic interference, you stop triggering others' defense mechanisms and patterns. Projects flow with less friction because your coherent field helps organize chaos into order, the same way a magnetic field organizes iron filings into patterns. You'll notice a sensation of being carregado, carried by the field, rather than having to force everything through willpower. Opportunities come through connections in your network that you didn't orchestrate consciously. Resources appear through people who just thought of you at the exact right moment. This isn't luck accumulating, it's your clean signal activating the support invisible that exists in collaborative fields, making visible the momentum quantico that's always available, but usually blocked by individual and collective interference patterns. What's particularly fascinating is how this works across distance and time. You don't need to be physically present to influence a field. Your sustained coherence affects people in your network through what quantum physics calls non-local effects. Send a message from a place of total trust and surrender versus anxious urgency, and recipients respond differently even though the words might be identical. Hold someone in your awareness with compassionate coherence rather than worried concern, and their situation shifts in ways that have no logical mechanism. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's the field responding to intentional electromagnetic signatures that transcend physical proximity. The more you stabilize in confianza quantica, the more you become a beacon that others navigate toward, often without understanding why they suddenly feel drawn to reach out or collaborate. The ultimate realization is that you're not doing this work just for personal gain. You're participating in the collective evolution toward a species that understands and operates through collaboration with omniscient intelligence, rather than force and control. Every moment you choose surrender over interference, trust over anxiety, coherence over contradiction, you're voting for a different future with your electromagnetic signature. You're making it easier for your children, your community, your field of influence to access states of flow and manifestation that previous generations thought were reserved for mystics and saints. This is the real work of quantum consciousness, not escaping reality, but transforming it through the quality of presence and trust you bring to each moment, knowing that your internal state has measurable, reproducible effects on the external world. And now you have the complete framework, from diagnosis to activation, evidence to embodiment, personal to collective, so the only question that remains is what you're going to do with it, because information without application is just entertainment, and you didn't come this far to stay the same. So it all comes down to this: you are the quantum energy itself. Quantum trust is not about trusting something outside of you. It's consciousness recognizing itself, trusting its own nature, and finally resting from the exhausting search. When that happens, everything you were chasing stops running. The whole structure comes down to one sentence: define your why, relax the body, read the signs, and walk. That's it. Now I challenge you to choose one area of your life, relationships, money, health, or purpose, and maintain full cellular trust for just 7 days. Watch how reality bends. Are you truly ready to see what happens when you stop interfering? If this video resonated with you, like it, comment trust below, and write your 7-day commitment with your chosen why. Subscribe to keep this frequency alive and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next guided practice. And here's your first test. Share in the comments a synchronicity or download that appears within your next 24 hours. The field is already responding. Let's see if you're paying attention.